What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to this week's installment on The Lake Show. Now, bear with me today, guys. I'm a little bit under the weather, and it's that time of year where everyone's getting fucking sick and everything, so stay safe, stay healthy. It's just that time of year again where everyone's getting sick. Sickness goes around like plague this time of year, especially here in Ohio, so it is what it is. I loaded up on meds, so should be good to go for a little bit, but again, welcome back this week, guys, and we are winding down in the college football season and the NFL season. Obviously, this is dropping Monday, so we are live right now, and Michigan versus Washington, the national championship game. I was half right. I picked Washington to make it, but I also picked Alabama to make it. Obviously, that didn't happen. I thought Nick Saban was going to have Jalen Milroe and all those guys ready to play and beat Michigan, but you know, it is what it is. It happens. This has been a storied season for Michigan, that's for sure. This has been their best team in, God, Lord knows how long. Lord knows how long. It's just been an outstanding college football season. Now, this is the exact type of college football playoff I wanted to see out of everything. I wanted to see good quality teams go up against each other, playing for the Natty. And we got that. Especially tonight when the game commences. Obviously, you know, some of the keys to this entire game, it lies on Washington obviously being able to throw the ball. They have the number one passing offense in the entire nation for a reason, led by Michael Penix Jr. But it's also important to note that Michigan has the number one overall defense in the entire country. So, you know, the best passing offense going up against the best defense in the country, I mean, This should be a great game to watch, that's for sure. So we'll go in a little bit of depth later on about that, but like I said, guys, I like to take time to myself just to put out content that's, you know, kind of, you know, out of the ordinary for me. For a long time, I've been doing mental health stuff and mentality stuff like that and motivational content. And I'm going to continue to do so. I know that I've dipped away, and some people have mentioned it, that I've kind of shied away from my roots and what I plan to do with my channel. But that's just because I enjoy talking about football and sports in general. I know for a fact I'm not going to compromise my roots. This is not going to become a complete sports channel, that's for sure. I know that. And I pride myself on being able to help those overcome any of their issues that they're struggling with in their lives. So at least until the college football season is over, and I don't do too many NFL videos. I just talk here and there about NFL information that drops, but I'm mainly into the college football aspect of it. But, you know, some people have told me that I kind of strayed away from the mental health and, you know, motivational content that I'm typically doing, but I know I'll get back on track with that, especially to all those who look forward to that sort of content when it comes to watching my channel. But, you know, soon enough, we'll be back on track with all that stuff, especially since football season will be coming to a close. So I don't really talk about baseball or basketball or anything like that. So just bear with me, guys. We'll get right back on track with that stuff. So a couple things we're going to talk about today. So obviously the national championship is tonight, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, but there's some other things that I wanted to go over. So this might be a little bit of a shorter episode today, but, you know, newsworthy nonetheless. So one thing I really wanted to discuss was, obviously before I talked about the transfer portal in college football, I talked about how I don't necessarily think it's that great for college football, especially since you can just pay for athletes to go to your school. Well, there's one team in particular that I've been hot on lately, and that's the Ohio State Buckeyes, especially since this past season was not one to Ohio State standards, or at least some of the Ohio State Buckeye fans would like to say. Kyle McCord was their quarterback this year. Obviously, he entered the portal, and he's now gone from Ohio State. He went to Syracuse, so that just goes to show, was he really cut out for Ohio State football? But the one thing that I really wanted to talk about when it comes to Ohio State, two things really. the transfer quarterback that they just got and the future of Ryan Day for coaching at Ohio State. So recently, Kansas State quarterback Will Howard committed to the Buckeyes. Here's the thing. Will Howard is not a terrible quarterback, but at the same time, Will Howard is not the type of quarterback that I can imagine playing at Ohio State to the level at least Ohio State quarterbacks are capable of producing on the field. So his 2023 stats, he had a 61.3 completion percentage, 2,643 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 10 picks. That sounds an awful lot like Kyle McCord, almost. So are you really getting an upgrade at quarterback when it comes from Kyle McCord to Will Howard? Is that really an upgrade? Now, Kansas State's not a pushover program, but they're never at the top of college football. They haven't been at the top of college football since Colin Klein was their quarterback back in 2012. But is this really the biggest splash that Ohio State can make? Obviously, they have a couple freshman quarterbacks that they hope to get ready, hope to play real soon, but obviously they still need time to develop and grow as passers and as college football players in general. But getting a vet quarterback in your program, I guess, is always a plus. I've been one advocate about that you need someone with veteran leadership. Why waste time trying to build up one of these freshmen when you can just go into the portal and get someone with more experience? Well, while I get why I said that before, I think Ohio State could have done way better than just Will Howard from Kansas State. I don't really know what to make of it, especially because I think Ryan Day's coaching days at Ohio State are numbered. I think he's been on the hot seat for so long, his ass has permanent third-degree burns and everything like that. So we're going to take a look at Ohio State's schedule for 2024. Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, Michigan State, Iowa, Oregon, Nebraska, Penn State, Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, and Michigan. So that's your typical Ohio State schedule. At least in my opinion, Ohio State has always had a schedule like this. Oregon obviously is going to be tough. They go to Oregon, they go to Michigan State, and they're at Penn State. Penn State, Michigan State, and Michigan have always been the big three games for Ohio State each and every year, other than an occasional stinker like Purdue back in 2017 or 2018, I believe. It might have even been 2020, but the problem with Ohio State is while I get the move. I get the move trying to get Will Howard to come in, a veteran quarterback in college football, has experience under his belt, but I don't think he's capable of playing to the level that Ohio State usually requires in order to be competitive in the national spotlight. If you really think about it, can you imagine what Ohio State football is going to be like if Ryan Day loses to Michigan again? He's already 0-3 against Michigan. He's 0-3 against the SEC. What is left for Ryan Day as head coach? And now people are going to, smack talk him and everything like that just because he hasn't beat Michigan, but the dude still has an unbelievable record at Ohio State. But the big issue is he hasn't that beating Michigan, that defines coaches. Doesn't matter if you're a coach of Michigan or Ohio State. That game is always going to define your career as a head coach when it comes to those two programs. Obviously, Harbaugh has had the upper hand against Michigan for a long time. No, it's not because of sign stealing. Don't waste my breath with that bullshit. But Ryan Day, I can't see any plausible reason if Ryan Day lost to Michigan again this year on November 30th that he would still have a job. The only way I can possibly see Ryan Day having a job if he were to lose to Michigan again is if his team was playing so well and they just happened to lose to Michigan in a shootout but he would still have to make the college football playoff. Obviously, we're moving into the 12-team playoff, so it's completely plausible to think Ohio State would still make the playoff regardless of losing to Michigan and not making a Big Ten championship. It's completely plausible for Ohio State to still make it there. But the big issue that I would suggest is that Ryan Day would need to win that national championship. I don't think Ryan Day doesn't have much left in the tank to offer Ohio State. Like I said, it's kind of far-fetched to think that Ryan Day would have a job if he lost to Michigan again and become 0-4 against them. But if they were to keep him, if they were to just ride out the rest of the season, if he were to win a national championship, I think that would keep his job. But at the same time, I don't see Ohio State being in the national championship spotlight. Obviously, I think personally they'd make the 12-team playoff, but if anything, they would win one game and then be done, a one-and-done sort of team. But then again, this is an entire year away, so we have no idea how Ohio State's roster is going to look, their defense, their offense, Will Howard, or whoever their quarterback is going to be at the time of fall. But like I said, it's completely plausible that Ohio State fires Ryan Day after Michigan if he were to lose again. So I don't know where you would go from there as Ohio State fans or as the Ohio State Buckeyes team. I really don't. But honestly, that's neither here nor there. I don't really understand the reasoning that you would fire him. He's still in my opinion, he's still a good coach. Time clock management and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, I get it, but if we're being real, I think Ryan Day, let's just say his ass is on the hot seat, and I don't know how long exactly it's going to be until Ryan Day is fired from Ohio State. But I do think it's completely possible that if he lost to Michigan for a fourth straight time, that he would be let go the next day. And like I said, if he's not let go the next day, and if he does make the college football playoff, he better win it. I think that's the only way he keeps his job. So we're going to move on to something else. So obviously the 2024 NFL Draft will be coming up real soon. And there's been a lot of talk about the crappy quarterback play that's been going on in the NFL this year. Obviously, some part of it has to do with injuries, people not playing and everything like that. But I think it's possible that we can have 5 quarterbacks drafted within the top 15 picks of this year's draft. So here's the top 15 picks for this year's NFL Draft. Chicago at 1, Washington at 2, New England at 3, Arizona at 4, New York Giants at 5, the Chargers at 6, Titans at 7, Jets at 8, Atlanta at 9, Chicago at 10, Las Vegas at 11, Minnesota at 12, New Orleans at 13, Denver at 14, Seattle at 15. I think it's completely plausible that there are at least 5 quarterbacks that could be taken within the top 15 this year in this draft. Caleb Williams is easily the best prospect. I don't care what people say telling me that he had a horrid last year of college football. Caleb Williams had to basically completely rely on himself his senior year at USC. Well, not senior year, but his final year at USC. The biggest weapon that Caleb Williams had throughout his college career was Jordan Addison, who's now tearing it up for the Minnesota Vikings right now. So don't tell me he's a bad quarterback when he still produced ungodly numbers at USC, despite having probably statistically one of the worst defenses in college football, and then no notable offensive all-pros or weapons to speak of, and yet Caleb Williams still goes out there and delivers. It's not his fault that he has to win a shootout every week. So obviously, the big names that are in the 2024 NFL Draft, Caleb Williams from USC, Drake May from North Carolina, Bo Nix from Oregon, Jaden Daniels from LSU, and then Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. Those 5 guys are going to be taken in the top 15, at least in my opinion, because I can see 5 of these teams needing a quarterback. And I can see even more needing a quarterback. So let's go through them. Chicago. Are they going to stick with Justin Fields or are they going to move off? I don't know. But the way Justin Fields has been playing lately, if I was the Bears, I'd be willing to give Justin Fields one more shot, one more year. Obviously, you don't want to miss on quarterback talent when it presents itself, such as a Caleb Williams or a Michael Penix. But if you were hypothetically to give Justin Fields another chance, I would suggest drafting Marvin Harrison, the stud Ohio State wide receiver. Probably the best wide receiver prospect we've seen in forever. But Chicago, I can definitely see them wanting to move off Justin Fields and getting a quarterback. So there's one. So Washington at 2. Are you going to run it back with Sam Howell again? Probably not. So Washington would probably get a quarterback. New England would probably get a quarterback because New England is just god-awful. I don't know who would actually want to play there just because they have no weapons to speak of whatsoever. And we're going to talk a little bit about New England in a bit. But yeah, Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, they're not cutting it. So New England would draft a quarterback. Arizona has Kyler Murray. They're fine. The Giants, they would draft a quarterback. Tyrod Taylor, he's good, but, he's a backup. Daniel Jones, I don't even think he's a backup in this league. I don't understand giving him all that money. Daniel Jones is the most overrated quarterback I think I've ever seen taken in the first round ever. And then Tommy DeVito, well, that Cinderella story in a way came to an end. I mean, he's not super great, but, there could be something there. But I definitely think the Giants would take a quarterback for sure. The Chargers, they're not taking a quarterback. They got Justin Herbert. And for all those who said Justin Herbert was the issue with the Chargers team, yeah, I bet you're real smart, bud. You are real fucking smart. You cannot blame Justin Herbert for his team's misfortunes the past couple years. Not at all. That dude has single-handedly held that team together, and it showed ever since he got injured and hasn't been playing. That team's been even more of a shit show, and I didn't even think that was possible. So, Chargers, they would not take a quarterback. The Tennessee Titans, you're going to run it back with Will Levis when you got guys like Michael Penix right there, Caleb Williams there, Drake May. I think Tennessee would take a quarterback. The Jets won't take a quarterback, even though I can see a scenario in which they do, having another quarterback to, for Aaron Rodgers to mentor. But in a way, I feel like that was what this year was meant to do. Aaron Rodgers was meant to mentor Zach Wilson in a way. But I don't see the Jets taking a quarterback since they got Aaron Rodgers, and he'll be back. Atlanta Falcons, they will definitely take a quarterback. Taylor Heineke is not it. Desmond Ridder absolutely stinks. That dude lives to throw into triple coverage for whatever reason every single week. I swear, I watch an Atlanta Falcons game, this dude is throwing into triple or quadruple coverage at least 3 times a game. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Atlanta needs a quarterback badly. Taylor Heineke's not it. He's a good backup, and Desmond Ridder, he's like up there with Daniel Jones. I'm not even sure he's a backup in this league. Chicago, we already talked about. Las Vegas. Yeah, they would definitely take a quarterback. You're going to run it with Aiden O'Connell? You sure? I don't think so. They would draft a quarterback. Minnesota. Are you going to run it back with Kirk Cousins? Are you going to look back in 5 years and say, yeah, Kirk Cousins is the future? I don't think so. Minnesota, you've been waiting close to 4 or 5 years for Kirk Cousins to deliver finally, and the dude just hasn't. So I think Minnesota would draft a quarterback. New Orleans, yeah, they would draft one. Derek Carr looks like washed hot garbage right now, so New Orleans would take one. Denver, they're going to move off of Russell Wilson, despite what anyone wants to say. I don't see that ship riding, or I don't see Sean Payton and Russell Wilson riding the ship on that. So Denver, I'm pretty sure they're getting rid of Russell Wilson. They're going to get out of that contract. So obviously they would take a quarterback too. And then Seattle, the Geno Smith transition. I like Geno Smith, but he has regressed, and he is kind of an older quarterback in the NFL. But it's entirely possible that Seattle would take a quarterback. So just to round off the rest of the draft, you got Cincinnati. They won't take one. Houston has C.J. Stroud. They're set. Pittsburgh needs a quarterback. So it's possible that they would trade up to get one of those top spots. Green Bay, they're set with Jordan Love. Tampa Bay, I don't think they would take one because of Baker Mayfield. The Colts, they got Anthony Richardson coming back from injury. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence. The Rams, Matt Stafford. Buffalo, Josh Allen. Kansas City, Mahomes. Philly, obviously they got Jalen Hurts. Detroit, they got Jared Goff. They're fine. Miami's fine. Dallas is fine. San Fran's fine. Baltimore is more than fine. Cleveland, I think you should just ride with Joe Flacco and just cut ties with Deshaun Watson. But it's just entirely plausible that 5 quarterbacks could be taken within the top 15 picks. I mean, it's very likely that it could happen. A lot of these teams have absolutely atrocious quarterback play, and all 5 of these guys could be franchise guys. Now, it is known that not every first-round quarterback pans out, but if there's any year that it possibly could, it would be this year. Like I said, the top 5 quarterbacks easily this draft is Caleb Williams from USC, Drake May from Carolina, Michael Penix, who's playing in the national championship tonight, and then Bo Nix from Oregon. And then I know there was one more. Sorry, guys. Under the weather. And Jaden Daniels from LSU. That's right. So I don't know what's going to end up happening in the 2024 draft. I look forward to seeing it because the Chicago story is very intriguing to me, especially since Justin Fields has been playing okay recently. But I can see Chicago trading Fields to Atlanta. Atlanta needs a quarterback, and I think Justin Fields would be a good fit for Atlanta. And then Chicago would get probably a second-round pick or a third-round pick for Fields and then just continue to grow from there. So time will tell. So we'll see eventually how that unfolds. But you never know. I pray that Pittsburgh finds their way up in the top 10, maybe trading a couple pieces just to get there. But, I have no idea how that's going to pan out. So only time will tell. So there's something else I wanted to mention. I talked earlier about how New England definitely has a quarterback issue. Well, the New England Patriots have just an organizational issue. I know for a fact that today that Bill Belichick is meeting with Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, to discuss his future with the Patriots. So here's the thing. I've never said that Bill Belichick was a bad coach. I still think he's one of the greatest coaches, probably the greatest NFL coach of all time. But obviously it's been proven that he needed Tom Brady to be, at the top of the mountain. But here's the issue with Bill Belichick. This dude does not know how to draft to save his life. They have no skill position players to speak of. They have probably one of the slowest teams in the NFL. They're just a hot mess. And Bill Belichick has all the control over player personnel. And I think that's a massive, massive issue. There is no conceivable reason that the past 5 or 6 drafts for Bill Belichick has been absolutely putrid. And Colin Cowherd, from the host of The Herd, actually talked a little bit about Bill Belichick. So I'm going to play a little clip for you guys, and then I'll discuss a little bit more afterwards.
You watch the draft the last 10 years, 8 have been a disaster. Last year, 3 guards, 2 kickers for the slowest offense in the league. They have no playmakers. It's a garbage roster. Offensively, it's a mess. So this is not one of these. Bill's territorial. He can get defensive. He's abrasive. That's why he fills his staff with either family members or people that can deal with his abrasiveness. So some people you just have to move on from. Some people are too big of personalities that they take over the building, suck the oxygen out of it. I always said with Cam Newton, he's too big of a celebrity to be a backup. Tim Tebow, too big of a celebrity to be a backup. You're either going to give Cam and Tebow the team or not. Russell Wilson probably can't be a backup. Johnny Manziel probably can't be a backup. Bill can't be a backup on personnel. He won't accept it. So, and what's interesting with Bill is he built this entire culture on move off people a year early, never late.
And that's been the whole thing with Bill Belichick. He was always the smartest person in the room. He had a defensive player. I remember this from years ago. He had a defensive player of the year, Stephon Gilmore. And then the year after he won defensive player of the year, Bill Belichick traded him. And a bunch of people, especially me, were like, what the hell are you doing? Like, that's your best defensive piece. What are you doing? Why are you getting rid of him? Well, he went to Carolina and then absolutely stunk up the joint. So, Bill Belichick has always been the smartest person in the room. And it's no secret that I think obviously Bill Belichick wanted to move off of Tom Brady a couple years earlier. That's why he drafted Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think that team still would have been great with Garoppolo early on, but obviously that's not the way it happened. That's not the way it turned out. But the way that Bill Belichick handles personnel is just absolutely atrocious. I couldn't tell you the last time that Bill Belichick made a splash in the NFL draft, ever, or free agency, ever. It just doesn't happen. And another quick note is that 2024, obviously the Pro Bowl rosters have been released. There is not one single New England Patriot on the Pro Bowl this year. I think that's the first time that's happened in damn near 20 years. But this just goes to show of how bad Bill Belichick is with player personnel. This dude does not know what he's doing half the time. When it comes to drafting skill position players, which he's allergic to, Bill Belichick doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to drafting and developing skill position players. He has no clue what he's doing when it comes to that. Player personnel in general. Quarterback play has been awful. Wide receiving play, awful. Tight end, offensive line. Defense is still consistent, but I would expect that out of a Bill Belichick defense. It just blows my mind. Complete control over player personnel. Very impulsive. Has no idea what he's doing when it comes to hiring and firing staff members. Like Colin said, he did hire a bunch of family members who know Bill, and it's Bill's way or the highway. That's how it's always been with Belichick. And that's why Tom Brady fucked off to Tampa Bay. He couldn't stand being around Belichick anymore. And I can't blame him. With the roster that he was surrounding Brady with, he wasn't going anywhere anymore. That dynasty was put to bed the second they lost to Tennessee in the wild card round. It just blows my mind. It really does. I don't understand how as a historic head coach like Bill Belichick can screw up player personnel like this so badly to the point where you don't even have a single Pro Bowler on your roster. I couldn't tell you the last time I haven't seen a New England Patriot, at least one of them, in the Pro Bowl or get a Pro Bowl nod or an All-Pro nod. That's just something that does not happen. It's so baffling to me. But again, I thought for a while that Bill Belichick's days were numbered in New England, and obviously the meeting with Robert Kraft. I hope Kraft at least, if the only way I can see Bill Belichick staying in New England is if he relinquishes control of player personnel, or just because he's the head coach and the GM of the Patriots. He has to relinquish the GM job and just stick with the coaching. He gets no more say in player personnel, no more say in staff hires. His job should be just to coach. And he's really damn good at that. But player personnel and staff hiring, Bill Belichick is one of the worst in the league. And I'll go to my grave saying that. So now, let's finish off today with the College Football National Championship game. Washington and Michael Penix versus J.J. McCarthy in Michigan. It's been kind of surreal watching this entire football season. It's just so baffling to me. There was so many good games. This is why I said you can't put the little guy in the college football playoff. Like last year, obviously, TCU played Georgia. It was a 60-point blowout win, and Georgia did the same thing to Florida State this past weekend. It's crazy. The amount of storylines that have happened this college football season is absolutely ridiculously immaculate. And I think this was one of the best college football seasons to watch in a very long time. The last time Washington made the college football playoff, I believe, was, and yes, they did make it, with the current Cincinnati Bengals quarterback, because Joe Burrow is injured, Jake Browning. That is the last Washington quarterback that led the Huskies to the college football playoff. Now, obviously, they ran into Alabama, and they got used and abused, but the Washington team now blows the old Washington team out of the water. Jake Browning and John Ross does not compare to Michael Penix Jr., Odunze, any of those guys on this Washington offense. So, obviously, you're having a team that's known for their basically the entire team is known for their offense, going up against an entire team that's reliant on their defense. So Washington, they have a top 10 total offense in the entire country. I believe they're number 10, but they do have the number 1 passing offense. Michael Penix Jr. is obviously the big benefactor to that. He is showing out. And personally, I believe he should have won the Heisman Trophy. I get why they handed it to Jaden Daniels from LSU, because he had 5,000 total yards and like 50 touchdowns. Basically had a Joe Burrow-like season, and I think it was even better statistically than Joe Burrow, but I don't get the reason they gave it to him, just because he didn't win enough. It'd be different if he was in the college football playoff conversation, but LSU lost 4 games. I believe LSU lost 4 games. They weren't even close to making the playoff. So, I don't know. I think Michael Penix Jr. deserves it more, among other players, but you're going up against Michigan, who's not really known for their offense. They don't have a top 10 total offense in this country with J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum, but their running attack is great. Typical Michigan team, always great at running the football, but they do have the number 1 defense in the entire country. So you get the number 1 passing offense going up against the number 1 defense in the nation. So some of the keys to this game, obviously Washington has to keep Blake Corum at bay. They have to slow down Blake Corum in a way, and the entire running game of Michigan. If Washington can stop the run against Michigan and make J.J. McCarthy beat them with his arm, I think Washington will have a way better chance at winning this game. But obviously Michigan's keys to this game is simply force turnovers and get after Penix. Go sack Penix. That should be Michigan's biggest gameplay. They are very reliant on their pass game. And if they can shut down and force turnovers and get after Michael Penix, obviously their chances of winning increase significantly. So it's been one hell of a college football season, everyone. Really has been. My final prediction. I think the Huskies take the crown. I'm going to take Washington in a kind of a shootout. I'll take Washington to win 31-28 and be crowned your 2024 college football playoff national champions. I really hope that it happens, man. I really do. I'm very good at betting usually when it comes to these games too. So that's my final prediction. Washington 31, Michigan 28. And that's going to wrap it up this week on The Lake Show, everyone. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends, and leave some comments down below. Thank you for bearing with me as I deal with my sickness. It really hurts my head right now, but we'll get back on track with my roots real soon when it comes to the motivational and inspirational content. But I appreciate appreciate all the support I've been getting recently for all my videos and everything I'm trying to accomplish on this channel. I'm your host, Dominic Lako. God bless.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend of